The first gleam. The glorious creator of this universe is the self-subsisting, Qayyum. The glorious creator of this universe is the self-subsisting, Qayyum. What is it? The creator of this universe. What was Khalq? Allah. That is, in terms of its literal meaning, the creator. The one who created this universe from nothingness, from absolute non-existence. The one who created all the particles, atoms, stars, galaxies, indeed the world, everything. The creator, Allah, is the self-subsisting, Qayyum. What does that mean? It means he exists by himself, he is permanent, he is everlasting. He exists by himself. What does by himself mean? Something either exists by itself or because of something else, right? For example, a tree. Does it exist by itself? Number, it exists because Allah created it. But Allah himself, by his very essence, is an existent being. That is, our existence is thanks to Allah, and our continuation is also thanks to Allah. But Allah's existence and continuation are from himself, from his very essence. That is, he is self-subsisting, Qayyum, permanent, everlasting. All things subsist through him. They continue and remain in existence, finding permanence. All things subsist through him. They continue and remain in existence and find permanence. All atoms, stars, trees, animals, mountains, stones, whatever exists in the universe, their existence continues through Allah. All things subsist through him. They continue and remain in existence, finding permanence. If that relationship of self-subsistence were to be severed from the universe for even a moment, the universe would be annihilated. If the connection, the bond with Allah, who makes it subsist, if Allah's act of continuing its existence were to be cut off or withdrawn for an instant, the universe could not stand, could not remain in existence. What would happen? It would cease to exist. If that relationship of self-subsistence were to be severed from the universe for even a moment, the universe would be annihilated. Moreover, with the self-subsistence of that glorious being, as the glorious Quran decrees, there is nothing like unto him. Now we have understood that Allah is the self-subsisting, right? And that the entire universe continues thanks to Allah. Now also, there is nothing like unto him. Another phrase from the knowledge of Allah. There is nothing like unto him. What does there is nothing like unto him mean? Look, it says immediately below, that is, there is no peer for him in his essence, nor in his attributes, nor in his actions. He has no likeness, no resemblance, no partner. In his essence, in his attributes, and in his actions. For example, in Allah's essence, isn't the exalted truth the necessary existent, wajib al-wujud? A description of his essence. His being eternal, azeli, everlasting, ebedi. Then his existence being from himself, there is no similar attribute to Allah's essence. His attributes, for example, Allah is the possessor of ultimate knowledge, the possessor of ultimate power. He sees everything at once, right? For example, in this way, there is no other being that possesses the attribute of ultimate knowledge, the attribute of ultimate power. There is no likeness in his attributes either, nor in his actions. For example, he governs all the universes at the same time. He manages all the stars simultaneously. He performs countless actions in an instant. In this respect, too, there is no likeness to Allah. That is, neither in his essence is there a likeness, nor in his attributes, nor in his actions is there a peer. He has no likeness, no resemblance, no partner. Yes, holding the entire universe with all its affairs and qualities, in the grasp of His Lordship, and nurturing, governing, and training the entire universe. When we say the entire universe, we will think of everything from particles to stars. When we say its affairs, shunat, everything has many characteristics, right? For example, you say a tree, it has many characteristics. You say a fruit, it has many characteristics. For example, you say an animal, it has many actions. Look at the bee and all the work it does, all the characteristics it possesses, both the bee itself and all the work it does, and all the characteristics it possesses. All of it, Allah created. He holds it there with His sovereignty. We can think of everything like this, holding the entire universe with all its affairs and qualities in the grasp of His Lordship, and nurturing, governing, and training it with perfect order, like a house and a palace. For example, how does a person generally, the houses we live in, are they 3 rooms and a living room? We call it 3 plus 1, 4 plus 1, 2 plus 1. You know what is where. You're aware of everything. You manage everything. You take care of it, like a room, like a house. This boundless, countless billions of light years in size, vast universe with all the particles within it, in a way that He has dominion over everything. Just as we see this room, the exalted truth sees and governs the entire universe at the same time, seeing everything in an instant. A being of holiness who, like a house and a palace with perfect order, takes measures, governs and trains. There is no likeness, no resemblance, no partner, no peer to Him. It is impossible. Look, we cannot even imagine His greatness. How then will we think of the greatness of the being who created and governs it, right? He has infinite greatness. A being who possesses infinite greatness has no likeness, no example, no resemblance, no partner, no peer, no associate. It is impossible. Yes. A being for whom the creation of the stars is as easy as particles. Yes. What was it, Mahmud? A being for whom the creation of the stars, for example, the sun is also a star, right? I mean planet, star. Our world is 1,300,000 times bigger than it. The Master says this, 300,000 times bigger than the world. How much bigger than us on earth is the sun? The sun is a small star. That is, He creates such a big star as easily as creating a particle. That is, just as easily as Allah creates a tiny particle, an atom, creating stars, is also that easy for Him. Yes, a being for whom the creation of the stars is as easy as particles, and the greatest thing is as subjugated to His power as the smallest thing. For example, we manage a small thing, but as it grows we struggle, right? For example, in managing, in having dominion. For the exalted truth, the smallest and the largest are of equal ease. For example, turning a small stone and turning a star, managing the sun, for example. Between the greatest thing and the smallest thing, they are as subjugated to His power. Nothing prevents anything else. No action prevents any other action. For example, this happens in human actions. When comparing, you are studying. Can you do something else clean at the same time? For example, you cannot. You are cleaning, you cannot eat. If you are eating, you cannot do something else at that moment. That is, a person can do one action at a time. When he says, let me do a second action, the previous action prevents him. The exalted truth, however, creates the movements and actions of 7 million people, 8 million people at the same time. He gives their sustenance at the same time. He gives life to all animals at the same time. He does things, countless actions,
Not 2 or 3 actions, countless actions he performs at the same time. None of them prevents another. Nothing prevents anything else. No action prevents any other action. And countless individuals are present in his sight like a single individual. Yes. Istanbul, you explain this part. Countless individuals are present in his sight like a single individual. What did countless individuals refer to? Individuals among individuals. For example, how many people can you see at once right now? I mean, for example, I can see 3 people, 10 people, 20 people. But if there are 100 people, I can no longer see them clearly. Even if they are in front of me, I can't distinguish them anymore. I can see 3 or 5 people at the same time. You can distinguish them. You don't confuse them. In the sight of the exalted truth, all people, all animals, all individuals of animals, all particles, all years, he sees all of them at the same instant, at one moment. Countless individuals are present in his sight like a single individual, and he hears all voices at once. For example, when one person is speaking and another person is about to speak, what do we say? Hey, you be quiet, we say, right? So that the first one can speak, we say in order. We cannot even listen to 2 people at the same time. But the exalted truth hears the voices and prayers of all 7.5, 8.5, however many billions of people there are at the same time. It doesn't prevent him. He answers the needs of all of them. He hears all voices at once and can perform the countless needs of all at the same time. And with the testimony of all the order and balance in the beings of the universe, if I ask, how will I know this? Look, this tree with its fruit, with its branch, with its leaf, orderly, munazzam, artistic, look, it creates it. So the other tree with its fruit, with its order, with its munazzam, with its flower, with its insect, artistic, it creates that too. So atoms are also artistically munazzam, orderly, munazzam, they are revolving. Wherever anything is, it is all executed with perfect art. So he can do all of them at the same time, because he brings the entire spring to the whole face of the earth all at once. This is the proof. That is, with the testimony of all the order and balance in the beings of the universe. Nothing, no state is outside the sphere of his will and decree, and although he is in no place, he is present in every place and in every location with his power and his knowledge. Yes, let Mahmud understand this too. Although he is in no place, that is, the exalted truth, by his very essence, is not in a place. The Creator cannot be within this created universe, right? By his very essence, the exalted truth is the necessary existent, wajib al-wujud. He is beyond being confined by space, but with the manifestation of his power and his knowledge, he is everywhere. Because everywhere a work of the exalted truth is realized, an act of his is realized. For example, in the creation of an apple or a flower or an insect, within that process, power manifests, knowledge manifests. So Allah with his power and knowledge is here. And on the other side, he is there too, because art is coming into being there. Although he is in no place by his essence, he is present in every place with his power and his knowledge. And although everything is infinitely distant from him, he can be infinitely close to everything. Such a glorious, living, self-subsisting being certainly has no likeness, no peer, no partner, no vizier, no opposite, no equal in any respect, and it is impossible for him to have one. A being who does and can do all these things certainly has no likeness, no peer, no partner, no vizier, no opposite, no equal in any respect, and it is impossible for him to have one. And only in the form of parables and representations can his holy attributes be considered. So then, since he has no likeness, and we cannot understand him by comparing him with a likeness, how then will we understand and know the exalted truth? Only in the form of parables and representations can his holy attributes be considered. That is, Allah's essence has no likeness, because since it has no likeness, if there were a likeness to Allah's essence in the universe, we would say it is like this. But since the universe is already created, whatever it is, since it is ultimately created, and Allah is not created, therefore he has no likeness anyway. He cannot have one anyway. There is no need to look for one, because automatically whatever is a created being, a creature. A creature never resembles the Creator. But then his essence has no likeness. Well, but look at his attributes, his works. We can look at them, it says. That is, in terms of his actions, there are simple examples, like the actions of humans or the actions of the sun. That is, in the point of action, some things can be an example, but in his essence there can be no example, right? There could be no example in his essence. Only in the form of parables and representations can his holy attributes be considered. All the representations and similes in the RİSALE-İ Nur are of this kind of parable and representation. Such an unparalleled and necessary existent. Of course, for example, why unparalleled? These issues of his essence, God willing, maybe after this, I can read about the issues of his essence for a while. Two infinites cannot exist, it says, for example, in the 32nd word. If there were another infinite one, it would give a boundary to the other, it would limit it. Two infinites cannot exist. That is, at that point, he must have no likeness. Such an unparalleled and necessary existent. His existence is from himself. His existence is necessary. His non-existence is impossible. For example, the existence of the universe. Its existence is possible, and its non-existence is also possible. For example, we exist now, we could not exist. It is possible, that is. Why? Because we exist because Allah created us. If He stops creating, we will cease to exist. That is, while we exist, we can cease to exist, and while we do not exist, we can come into existence. That is, what we call matter. Both sides are possible. That is why it is called possible, mumkin. But since Allah exists by His very essence, since the cause of existence is Himself, His non-existence is impossible. His existence is necessary. So He is the necessary existent, wajib al-wujud. And there are beings whose existence is impossible. Those beings in the sense of partners to Allah, their existence is impossible, mumtini. The necessary existent, free from matter and beyond space, whose division and separation in every respect is impossible, whose change and alteration is impossible, and whose need and weakness are outside the realm of possibility. A glorious being whose some manifestations that appear in the pages of the universe and the layers of existence are mistaken for the very glorious being. And some misguided people give the decrees of divinity to some of His creatures, and some of them attribute some of the works of that glorious being to nature. This point says a very important thing. Some misguided people, mistaking some of the manifestations of a glorious being that appear in the pages of the universe and the layers of existence for the very glorious being, give the decrees of divinity to some of His creatures, And some of them attribute some of the works of that glorious being to nature. When you say nature, what is it then? You say, nature, that is the earth, it says. Mountains, stones, nature. Harika bir açıklama. Üçüncü bölümün İngilizce çevirisi. So then, my brother, I mean, are things like mountains and stones, intelligent and conscious. But there, that aspect appears. It mistakes the art for the artist. Whereas art is art, it is not the artist. Now, in the upcoming definition of nature, whereas in numerous places in the RİSALE-İ, it has been proven with definitive proofs that nature is a divine art. It cannot be the artisan. Divine art, nature, is an art of Allah. For example, what is an apple? It is an art of Allah, it is not the artisan. Or, for example, a butterfly, a rose, what do I know? Then let's say a honeybee. It is an art among his arts. It is not the artisan itself. It is an art of Allah. Nature is a divine art. It cannot be the artisan. It is a divine writing. It cannot be the scribe. Divine writing is the books written by our Lord. It cannot be the scribe. It is an embroidery. It cannot be the embroiderer. Embroidery is a work of art. The embroiderer is the one who makes it. Nature in everything is an embroidery of Allah. It cannot be the embroiderer. It is a ledger. It cannot be the accountant. It is a law. It cannot be power. Yes. For example, they teach us laws in schools, right? They teach us Newton's law of gravity. They describe laws to us as if they possess power. Laws do not possess power. Laws only have a scientific existence. They do not have an external existence. It is the system and order that the exalted truth follows in governing the universe. What is nature? It is a law. It cannot be power. It is a template. It cannot be the source of the template. Template, template, template. There is also a source. For example, there are templates, like stencils we have, right, brother? You put it down, for example, and draw with a pen. There is a picture of a bird there. The outline of a bird comes out. A mold. Let's say a mold. Yes, a mold. For example, nature is a mold. It is not the one who makes that mold, who casts that mold, who brings that thing into existence according to that mold. For example, you say, why are the petals of this flower like this? It says, a rose is always like this. Its mold is already like this. It's as if because its mold is like that, it tries to make the mold the one who made the mold, right? For example, it is a template. It cannot be the source of the template. It is receptive, it is acted upon, it cannot be the actor. It is receptive, it is acted upon, it cannot be the actor. For example, let's say a carpenter is making a table. The materials of that table, etc., are receptive to the art of that craftsman, to his intervention there. That is, they are only there, and the craftsman works on them. They are not the actors. If you don't touch it, it stays like that. The actor is the one who makes it. It itself is subjected to that action. That is, nature, things, material atoms, particles, they are all receptive to the actions that Allah realizes there with His power. They cannot be the actors. That is, to be the actor, knowledge is needed, will is needed, power is needed, many things are needed. These do not exist in the table, in the wood. They only exist in the craftsman. The craftsman can turn them into art in that way. Atoms, particles, for example, let's think of all the atoms in our body. They are all mindless, unconscious, lifeless matter. They do not possess knowledge or power. All these movements, their munvam and orderly states, cannot be expected from themselves.
So it means that an actor governs them in this way. If the actor did not govern them, they could not move in this way by themselves. Indeed, it means they receive the manifestation of the exalted truth. That is, they are receptive to it. It is receptive, it is acted upon, it cannot be the actor. It is an order, it cannot be the one who orders. Order, munazzam. For example, these sofas, for example, have a certain order here, right? A simple arrangement. For example, the one who orders is the one who puts them in this order. Now, is it the sofas themselves that put them in this state? Number, this order exists. Nature is order, but it is not the one who makes or realizes this order. It is an order. It cannot be the one who orders. It is a natural law. It cannot be the lawgiver. How will we understand this? It is a natural law. It cannot be the lawgiver. That is, for example, a flower or a bee or a tree has many things, right? Its shape, its form will be like this, it will be like that. It has many laws, principles, things. That is, these are taught in schools, right? They are taught in science books. The rules and laws of inheritance there are taught. Of course, these rules and laws are only the decrees that Allah has placed there. It is not the one who makes and governs those decrees. That is, it is a natural law. It cannot be the lawgiver. Hypothetically, if the smallest living creature, for example, we can think of a honeybee, were entrusted to nature and it was told, do this, as has been proven with definitive proofs in many places in the RİSALE-İ, molds as numerous as the limbs and organs of that small living being, perhaps even machines, would be required so that nature could do that work. For example, someone doing construction, then the form worker, the plasterer, let's say the craftsman, they are pouring concrete. For example, they are pouring this pillar, for example. Now, while pouring this pillar, while pouring his arm, what does the person do? He sets up a mold. If he doesn't set up a mold, can he give it this shape? He cannot. That is, in order to give shape to what is called mortar there, if he says, stay in this shape, it won't stay like that. Then he definitely sets up a mold. When it is poured into that mold, it gives it that shape. Now every animal, every flower, every plant, every fruit has a shape, doesn't it? It has a mold. That is, it has an eye, it has an ear, it has a nose, it has teeth, everything has a mold, it has a thing. How will it give those particles that shape in that way? Two ways. Either the mold will be material or the mold will be spiritual. Since nature does not have a spiritual mold, the mold must be material. Then there must be molds to give those particles that shape. For example, an ear has a shape. When those particles then move randomly like that, can they take that shape? They cannot. Then it must make the shape with a mold. Then nature must have molds. For the sake of just the shape alone, many problems arise. I mean, within one, oh, what things there are. Separate molds are needed for them too. Molds, perhaps even machines as numerous as the limbs and organs of that small living being, would be required so that nature could do that work. Moreover, some misguided people, called materialists, because they felt the greatest manifestation of divine creation and divine power within the munazzam transformations in particles. Some misguided people, called materialists, because they felt the greatest manifestation of divine creation and divine power within the munazzam transformations in particles. Munazzam transformations, the transformation of matter from one state to another, transformations. If we were to give an example of this transformation, for example, what does a cow do?
It eats grass, it eats hay, it eats things, right? Like that, then from its udders, what flows? Pure white, healing milk flows. Now, what happened? What it ate, hay, grass, whatever it was, it turned into milk. That is, then a bucket of hay, grass, whatever it was, became a bucket of milk. Now, transformation, is this a simple event? It's an incredible thing. I mean, within that transformation, the hay went, the grass went, everything disappeared. What came in its place? Milk came. That is completely unrelated. Only the particles might be related, but you probably know the difference between what is called grass and what is inside milk, right? Then what is within that transformation? There is divine creation. That is, there is an incredible creation of Allah. That is because they felt the greatest manifestation of divine creation and divine power within those munazzam transformations. Here there is an incredible manifestation of the power of the exalted truth. They feel this. That is, a great event is taking place. That is because they felt it and did not know where that manifestation came from. They see it. It's an incredible event. A creation is taking place. But what? Because they do not know Allah, or because they do not want to know Him, because they did not know where it came from and did not know where the general power coming from. The manifestation of that heavenly power was being directed. Because they could not understand where it was being directed, by imagining matter and force to be eternal, they began to attribute the particles and their movements to the author al-He, that is, the works of Allah. He looks, what is there? What are the atoms doing? They are moving. He says, oh, the atoms are moving, and that's why it happened like this. This time, when he cannot see anything else there, he concludes, well, these must be doing it. Then the Master says, glory be to Allah. Can such boundless ignorance exist in people, that while being beyond space, He is present in every place, in the creation of everything, in a way that He sees, knows, and governs everything, to attribute the actions He performs with such a state, etc., to inanimate, blind, unconscious, okay, you say particles, but let's look at the properties of the particle. Does it really have a property to do these things? To attribute them to inanimate, blind, unconscious, will-less, unbalanced particles that are tossed about in the storms of chance, and their movements, how ignorant and superstitious an idea it is, those who possess even a particle of intellect must know. Yes, these people, because they abandoned absolute unity, have fallen into an absolute multiplicity without limit. That is, because they do not accept a single deity, they are forced to accept countless deities. That is, because they cannot fit the eternity and creatorship, which are the attribute and essential necessity of a single glorious being, into their corrupted minds. They are compelled by their doctrine to accept the eternities, perhaps even the divinities, of those countless inanimate matters. Not because it is logical or anything, but they are forced. That is, when they don't say Allah, then since you deny, when they say, then you tell us, they are forced to say something. Here, come on, you come. Eternity. What was eternity? Ignorant, eternal. It means very ignorant. That is, look at the endless degrees of eternity. Yes. As for the manifestation in the particles, it has brought the community of particles by the power, might, and command of the necessary existent into the state of a munzam and magnificent army. That is, when you say an army, for example, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of soldiers moving together in a munawwam and orderly way, right? For example, the atoms, particles, etc., in a body than in a living being are more numerous than an army in a more incredible order, under the command of Allah, the Supreme Commander. Then they can be thought of as the soldiers of an incredible army. These are the particles. Yes. As for the manifestation in the particles, it has brought the community of particles by the power, might, and command of the necessary existent into the state of a munawwam and magnificent army. If the command and power of that Supreme Commander were to be withdrawn for a second, that very numerous, inanimate, unconscious community would become like unruly mobs. Perhaps they would all be annihilated. For example, if we think of it like this, you are a commander or a manager. You get work done by commanding 10 or 20 people, but none of them know anything about that work, their things. They do what you say. So they get it done. That is, they can do something because you manage them. What happens if your management is withdrawn for a moment? They have nothing of their own. I mean, they don't know how it's done. They do it according to what you say, what you describe. When you withdraw,
It stops at that moment. When we were in the military, we were doing things. We were sewing tent holes, for example. There were all sorts of things for that. The commander would say, we would do it, for example. The commander disappeared from our midst. We were left there like that. Then, because you have nothing of your own, no knowledge, no power, you wait. That is the management, the governance, the creation of all the particles by the exalted truth. All of this takes place with his self-subsistence, Qayyumiyat. If he were to leave it for a moment, not a single particle would know what to do. Everything would turn into nothingness in an instant. But if it doesn't, if it continues, it means that the manifestation of his self-subsistence continues. Then it means that the existence of the self-subsisting being also continues. He is present and ready at every moment, creating, doing, trabbi, and taking measures for the entire universe. Let me read this sentence and finish. Yes. As for the manifestation in the particles, it has brought the community of particles, by the power, might, and command of the necessary existent, into the state of a munawwam and magnificent army. If the command and power of that Supreme Commander were to be withdrawn for a second, that very numerous, inanimate, unconscious community would become like unruly mobs. Perhaps they would all be annihilated.